Welcome to the citizens participation meeting for the Northside Corners project. We have here with me at the Midwestern Consulting offices, Scott Betzel, the civil engineering consultant for the project, a longtime friend and former U of M student together at the architecture school, Scott Bowers, and I'm Brad Moore. Scott and I have had practices here in Ann Arbor for 3 decades at least.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Scott's even older. So my history and Scott's history with the site goes back to the original development of the condominium and daycare center on that property. So we have a long time history with the property. And the last piece of undeveloped property is the corner property, and that is what we're going to discuss tonight. Just as a snapshot of the overall process in moving a site plan forward to the city of Ann Arbor, that starts with this endeavor called the Citizens Participation Meeting, where we present the initial concept of the project and solicit public comment and questions.
May I make a comment?
Yeah.
That unfortunately, and I'm surprised since you guys are so dialed in with this area, you didn't send out the information to anybody in the township, and we are all the people directly across the street in that Pontiac trail. So I ran flyers around a couple of nights ago, but that probably didn't give people a whole heck of a lot of time. I'm seeing how very few people showed up here tonight. So I think that was an enormous disappointment.
So that process, I can delve a little bit into that. The process is that the city planning staff provides our mailing service with a list of addresses. We don't generate that. That is generated by the city planning staff. That goes to our mailing and printing service. They print out the postcards and then they mail them through the U.S. I don't even touch them. And so I can't vouch for that mailing list, who's on it and who isn't. I take you at your word. And thank you for whatever measures you took to increase public awareness. If you did not receive a postcard, I would check with the planning department and find out why your address wasn't on that list. But again, we don't get involved in the process. We just hand over the data file that the city gives us to the printer.
So are you in the township being you're on Varren Road or across the expressway?
No, on Varren. So, you know,
okay.
we're hanging on the edge there.
Yeah, so I guess that's probably where the glitch is that the city only has database information for city residents. And this being kind of an unusual circumstance, I guess, being right on the fringe of the city township, I guess that's probably what happened there.
I don't take any I don't have any insights into this functionality at City Hall.
Yeah.
I just tell you, we don't generate the list.
Okay. All right. Well, that's too bad nonetheless, but yeah, thank you for explaining.
This is the very, very beginning. There is plenty of opportunities that will be ahead of you at various other planning commission meetings, city council meetings. So
that was what I was trying to get at, was with the overall of the process. So this is the start of the citizen engagement. We've already had some preliminary discussions with city staff to get their engagement early on. We've crafted an initial proposal that we'll present tonight, and then that proposal will continue to be tweaked over the next few weeks until there's a formal submission made to the city staff. And then the city staff will disseminate it to everybody, all the different departments within the city for comments, fire marshal, parks, solid waste, engineering. Everybody will get a look at it and give us feedback. And then we revise our plans based on their feedback. We submit it. It goes back and forth in that process until the internal city staff are convinced that the project is as good as it can be made. And then they'll forward it on to the planning commission, which will hold a public hearing. And the public hearing will be at a planning commission meeting, of which there's public notice required for those meetings as well. And then after planning commission makes its recommendation, this will move on to city council. Again, they'll have another public hearing in city council, and there'll be another public notification requirement at city council. So this is just the very beginning of a long process in which there's plenty of opportunities to engage with your planning commission and city council members. So that we're at the beginning, and so we're going to show you where we're at and solicit questions and comments and make note of those, and then tweak the design based on stuff we get here and stuff we've gotten from the city staff so far. And then we'll make our submission probably in June or July. Just depends on how much tweaking we have to do. So the goal is to get the plan before the city in the next couple of months.
So we're going to go through some exhibits here, just kind of introducing the project, starting from the 10,000-foot view and a little history into what we're proposing, and then some very nice, very beautiful elevations and renderings of the current proposal. Feel free to ask questions along the way. We'd like to keep a little bit of a flow going here, and there'll be plenty of time for asking questions at the end, though. But if there's something that you need to comment on about something particular that we're talking about right at that moment, don't worry about it. This is a very informal process. So I'm going to start with just a map view. I'm guessing that most of you guys know where this is at. This is on the southeast corner of Nixon and Varren Road. It's an outlot.
Do you want to share your screen?
No, picky.
I'm always that way.
This is the psychic citizens participation.
Oops.
You're just going to show them themselves. Stop sharing.
There we go. No, now I can pick up my thing here. Hold on. There you guys. You guys have a map now? All right. Hard, tough crowd tonight. So here we are. We're in the southeast corner of Varren and Pontiac Trail. This is its own separate parcel from what was originally the Northside Commons planned unit development. So in about 1999, Brad, I think we started working on this project with the developer at that time, Norfolk Development. Norfolk is not developing this property. It has been for sale, and they've sold it to another developer to develop this property. I'm going to switch to aerial. So here we are. We're adjacent to the townhomes at Northside Commons. I know they have a different name in Northside Commons, but I can't remember what it is right now. The site is immediately west of, I believe it's still Gretchen's house, daycare. Gretchen's house has a shared use agreement for parking that was constructed at the time. That parking will be used in part with this new proposal. You will see that the parking lot will be somewhat reconfigured, but it still will be shared with the new development and the Gretchen's house staff. Looking out, that's the big picture. The commercial component of this was not initially developed in 2000, as I think when construction started, because none of this residential development over here existed. I think that
Just getting started.
yeah, the Bob Gunther's subdivision there, Foxfire, was underway, but none of the other developments on North Nixon were there. So there just wasn't a lot of rooftops around to support neighborhood commercial. Since then, obviously, if you guys have lived out there for a couple of years, you know what's been going on in the last 5 to 10 years. So it has become economically viable to have some commercial properties there, and we have the support of the local neighborhood.
When the overall development was approved, that corner was approved for a mixture of residential and commercial uses. Do you have the original?
Yep, I will. And just because I saw the aerial, there's been a lot of questions. The barn is planned to be preserved and moved, if anybody was curious about that. Gonna go to.
Excuse me, I don't know if you see, I have my hand up. I don't know if you could see that or not. So you said that you have the support of the community and to add retail space? What community are you talking about?
No, we have just the support of the number of people that live in the area. When Northside Commons was developed, there wasn't many people that lived out in this area. It really wasn't a very vibrant residential area. So there wasn't enough people, residences in the area to support commercial. When I say support, I don't mean like people signed a petition that said that they liked this or that they wanted this. I'm saying that there's enough people live nearby to actually support the financial viability of a commercial enterprise here.
Because in that area, the only group, I only see one, unless I'm looking in the wrong place, I only see one barn and then Gretchen's house. And then there is so I was just curious as to, and then there's like that Knightbridge condominiums. I was just curious to see who you asked.
As I said, this was not a poll that we took. It's just there's enough homes and people live in this area now to support neighborhood commercial. So I will start with, I'm just going to quickly show you. This is the original site plan that is dated from 1999, early 99. That basically provided the entitlement of zoning for commercial residential at the corner. Here we show the townhomes that was part of the Northside Commons project, the commercial daycare that was part of it, and then the stacked flat condominiums. And I'm sorry, but the names of the two developments, they're slightly different. They escape me. But I just wanted to show you that this entitlement has been in the works for 20 some years. This is not new. This is always planned. This is the blow up. I just wanted to focus on what was originally approved. So this was the concept that was originally approved. It wasn't a detailed approval, but it was approved in concept for the amount of commercial square footage and the fact that it was a combined commercial and residential use. The numbers have changed a little bit based on just the design that we have right now. I'm going to show you the new design. This was shown as two buildings. The new design connects them slightly, so it's more of an L-shaped building instead of two standalone buildings. But I just want to show you this for historical purposes, because this is the entitlement that was granted back in 2000, about 22 years ago. And it's been 22 years basically in the making to come to fruition.
So be aware that in this original drawing, Pontiac Trail is on the bottom of the sheet and the Varren is on the left side. In the newer drawings that we're preparing, we rotated that 90 degrees to comply with a convention that north is generally viewed as being up on the sheet. Here, north is to the left.
Yeah, our new plans just have this component rotated on it. So let me flip to the new plans. These are the new plans. Close this so we get a bigger picture. This is a big picture view of it. Now north is up. So what used to be two buildings here are connected by some functional space and a breezeway. On the first floor, it's actually open, so you could pass from the walkways on the ground level back through the building and into the building's lower levels. But let me flip to, this is a topography. Here's the existing barn. Here's the shared parking. This is Gretchen's house, daycare over here. Once again, Varren is to the north, Pontiac Trail is on the west. This is the utility plan. There we go. This is the big one. Here's a good look at what we have here. We've got central parking area. We're proposing one building, as I said, connected by some functional space and breezeway. We have some parking on the lower end. This building on the south is actually is built like a walkout basement. The grade at the commercial level is at one grade, and then down below, the parking is 10 to 11 feet lower. And so vehicles can park, half of this basement is underground, or the whole thing is underground parking.
No, they're,
Half of it, 3/4.
3/4.
Okay, a good share of this building is underground parking underneath the building. And I'm pretty sure there's a good 60 spaces or so in there. We have parking spaces, surface parking spaces behind this building. We have surface parking spaces for the commercial uses out front. And then this parking lot here has parking for both the residents and the employees and staff of Gretchen's house next door. They have a contract with Gretchen's house that they made an agreement 20 years ago to keep this parking available for them. And that was part of the agreement when Gretchen decided she would build a daycare center in the area. There's about 250 new spaces all included under the building and as far as surface lots. And we can switch. We are showing a roundabout here. Many of you have probably heard that there's a roundabout coming. And so we're planning for that. I think that I know the area quite well. I think that will be a great addition to the area. And so we are dedicating right away and most likely contributing to the cost of the construction of that roundabout as well.
And to clarify, this geometry that we're showing here is very preliminary geometry provided to us by the city of Ann Arbor, who will plan and design and execute the construction of that roundabout. That's not part of our project. We won't do that.
Correct.
But there may be some contribution towards the cost of that on the part of our project. And again, that the geometry could morph and change. It's been suggested that maybe the amount of traffic would deserve a dedicated right-hand swoop that would avoid going into that. That's not on us. That's going to be whatever is arrived at by the city traffic engineering.
Yep.
So if anybody has specific ideas about the roundabout and how they think it would best function, that's something you could certainly contribute to the public engagement process that the city will initiate when they get ready to build it.
April, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thanks very much. So the excuse me, the vendor who's building the 484 units on the other side of this had told us that they are responsible for building the roundabout, that they're paying for it. So how does that fit in with your plans? Don't tell me you're going to rip it up right after they build it then.
No, I'm just quite sure that we'll probably be asked to contribute to the cost of that. I think that the Barton Green project, I think it's called the Avant now, I believe they had to even make a contribution to that future cost based on numbers of units and the trip generation that their residents would typically make and how often they would predict they would use something like this. Obviously, the Robertson Brothers housing proposal that you talk about, I think they call it the Village of Ann Arbor. The villages are the villages are in Florida. The Village of Ann Arbor, I think they call it. They are the biggest contributor to an increase in traffic in the area. So I'm quite sure they're funding the majority of it.
But the city's not going to let a private contractor like us
No,
build it.
no. The city's just gonna like collect funds to subsidize the construction.
And so the city will have it designed and they'll bid it out
Yeah.
to contractors that the city feels are qualified. So.
Does that answer your question?
And can I ask real quickly too, the commercial aspect of it, is that just going to be on the interior of both of those L buildings, or is it going to be on both sides?
Just on the interior, we'll get to those floor plan layouts shortly.
Yeah, I think if you look at the components of residential and retail kind of bisect the long dimension of each of the building, but we'll get to those. I think that's probably about all from the site plan standpoint that we really need to elaborate on, don't you think?
unless anybody's interested in.
I don't think anybody's interested in the grading plan, are you?
No, but maybe green spaces. Are there any green spaces, or are we just looking at concrete?
Asphalt and the green spaces are things that you see that are not in gray. So, I mean, there's some green space behind over here, but
So we have not colored them green yet.
no.
You show them the red.
Okay, you'll see a little bit more when landscaping when we get to the architectural component. This is what civil engineers make. We're very simple.
Are there berms around the road?
That has not really been, we haven't gotten that far yet. I'm sure there'll be some sort of landscaping treatment for sure, but
What about lighting? What is the lighting in the parking lot?
we haven't even gotten there yet. But I mean, the lighting will have to conform to the city's standards, which is downlit only, no direct upward migration of light, and in conformance to the city's standards for the warmth and color and foot candles.
Okay, what about signage? Is there signage on the site?
Signage is a long way away, and signage is not even a part of site plan. Signage is a whole separate process. Signage and fences are not a part of site planning process. It's an entirely different process of plan submittal and permit, and that will take place after the site plan is approved. But the signage ordinance is pretty cast in stone, and so they won't have any more signage than any other typical development of this size, of this frontage, street frontage. So I don't think you're gonna see like a 80-foot tall neon lit sign directing people from the freeway in here.
Yeah, will not be arborland.
You are avoiding all the important questions that people are asking about the berm, about how much asphalt's going to be there, about the lighting. You are changing all the folks' environment that we're going to have to live with, and you're saying, well, that's going to come in the future. You're not addressing the life-changing qualities of the corner.
Well, Tom, we are at the infancy. We are at the infancy of the design process here. The whole purpose of this meeting is to bring concepts out and get input, just like you're giving us right now.
Well, the infancy is when you can change things. It's at the beginning, it's when you can change things. Not when you're wrong. You're going to say it's too late. That's
exactly why we're doing this right now.
But you're not answering any of the questions.
I don't have answers for you.
Questions. The person asked about, could there be a berm? There's a lot of innovative solutions.
No, we lost you, Tom.
Everybody got muted.
No. Can
I don't
anybody
hear
else? Yeah, you can hear me?
I can hear you guys, but I don't hear Tom any longer.
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know what happened to him. But trust me, I don't know how to mute individual people. I'm not that kind of a person.
Yeah, so we have not evolved to a full-fledged landscape plan.
No, not even close. This is just.
And the berming and any screen planning on the berm would be part of the landscape plan. We're not that far along.
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure if Mr. Fardell wanted berms or didn't want berms. So. Yeah. So we're gonna move on right now. And
I
so
think that, oh, excuse me, folks. So perhaps I see Tom's point a little bit. There is a significant amount of changes that will happen within that area. I absolutely cannot see that traffic in that small corner with just one roundabout and retail space and underground parking. And I'm from the city, I'm from Chicago. I know how things are squeezed in, but this area just cannot support anything as, I think it's extravagant as this, and survive. I mean, there's a park right next to there. The lighting is going to change all of that. The animals in the area. So I'm a little disappointed at the way that this is being looked at.
All right, how do I raise my hand?
We hear you. Go ahead, Andy.
Oh,
You don't
okay.
have to- Just raise
Okay.
your hand.
All right, well, the way I understand it, and we live within 1,000 feet, apparently, we got a postcard and we are in the township. And we've been watching this corner, for 20 years. And I think it's great to get a corner store, I think that'd be awesome. But like Tom was saying, it's really important that it blends in. We don't want to look at a BP gas station kind of scenario. And I think that's reflected here. I mean, this looks, pretty good, with obviously a lot of work left to do on it. And so one question I had, have you guys looked at doing different layouts of the building? For instance, flipping it like the way they did the development down at Myers on Ann Arbor, Celine Road, where the businesses are pretty darn close to the sidewalk, and then the parking is on the inside. And I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just wondering if you looked at that.
So the feasibility study consultants indicated that they were concerned about the leasing of the residential units up against the road noise of those two roads.
Right.
And so that's why it is inverted. That's why you don't see the L nestled up into the corner. Is to distance the residential component from the traffic noise. Let's go through the rest of the drawing so we can.
Yeah.
I can show you a little bit more about the
Yeah,
project. And some of the questions may get answered by what you see.
yeah, I'm gonna suggest that we move on to the architectural drawings. What would you guys like to start with, the 2D? Okay. I'm gonna bring up.
So,
first floor.
Jamie, here's the ground floor level or the main
Hold
floor.
on. Here's the ground floor. This is
That's the basement.
basement. This is showing the underground parking on the south building. And at this point, like, there's no concurrent elevation on the north building.
And will those underground spots, are those going to be residential only?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So this is the base floor plate of the commercial and residential.
So as you can see, Jamie, it's the building that faces the communal parking lot that is the dedicated retail space. And the residential units which share the first floor are on the opposite sides of the building. In fact, on the upper building, the one that is the north-south access, the entrances to those four dwellings is actually a townhouse style entrance. It's a direct entrance from the outside to the.
Right here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to those dwelling units. On the other side, because we don't have grade access there, it's a story above grade. Due to that walkout basement configuration, those residential units have a common corridor that serves those units. So
The elevator core.
the elevator core is located in the corner there.
This is the elevator area?
Yep.
So coincidentally, the space up here was locked up by Bed Bath & Beyond, but I'm afraid probably not gonna happen.
He's joking, he's joking.
I can't even imagine something that big. I was thinking we'd get like an ice cream shop or something. Really?
Well, and the majority of those retail spaces you can see are a depth that is supportive of that type of use, like the ice cream shops or the dry cleaners or the hair salons. With the one exception of the larger retail space at the top, the northern end, which is of greater depth. We're thinking that could be a neighborhood food service facility. So you might get something like
Padova.
rapport, something like rapport.
No,
Something that would have, a community focus.
that's a little space by the hardware store, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of the concept of the scheme on that northern end. Down on the western end, in case we get a sandwich shop or something that does sandwich soups and ice cream, we also have some outdoor seating at that far west end.
Oh, yeah.
for a smaller type of food venue, like a sandwich shop or an ice cream shop. So there would be some potential outdoor dining patio in that end. So the end caps are viewed as potentially different than in the inner retail spaces, but it's
And then-
generally, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. The three doors I'm seeing are reflecting three different spaces are are available for retail in that bottom building. And then you have two on the right with the larger.
And depending on, yeah, again, this is so preliminary. If we got enough retailers that wanted to split it up so there were 5 doors or 4 doors, at this point, it's flexible, depending upon how much space each tenancy would want.
Okay.
Then on the upper floors, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to make a comment. Can I do that?
Yeah.
So when I think of this, I think of, like 2,000 people living within walking distance of this. And I think, if it's done right, it's going to be a place where people would walk to. So I think it really feels car dominated. And I know the city of Ann Arbor is probably going to have a lot to say about that. But my thought is, where there's more sidewalk, where you might get an ice cream shop with some seating, you might get a coffee shop, you might get those kind of companies in there. If it's inviting where people can sit outside, or, at least it feels inviting to pedestrians. And so I guess that's my comment. I think there's going to be about 2,000 people within walking distance of this place.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that. Are we just hopping in, or how's this working? Sorry.
Yep, sure.
Sounds great.
Because I'm going. Yeah, so my name's Emily. I spoke with Brad, I think last week, or Bradley, I don't know how you prefer to be called, but so I'm pro development and density, but the way this is designed right now is just looks like a suburban commercial space, frankly. And this is a key anchor point to the northeast or northwest entrance to Ann Arbor. And so making sure that we have the design, not just of the building itself and its proximity to the street, but as well as how the driveways are designed, the width of the walking paths, as well as making sure, I think there's some onus on actually making sure that there's bike safety there as well. So in my mind, the way it is right now, there are going to be like 4 driveways, right, within like 400 feet or something like that, between Gretchen's house and then the condo development to the south, something like that, right? And so, and it's all those driveways are vehicle dominated, which, as I told Brad, we've got, like, in our little development here, we've got almost a dozen kids under the age of 12. You've got Gretchen's house, the park, which is heavily used. And then you'll have a bunch of people living south of us. Like, the way it's designed now, a kid is going to get killed, frankly, like with the roundabout going in and then the driveways. Like, there has to be some very intentional thought to putting pedestrians and cyclists first when it comes to design. I think you kind of need to start from the street edge, right? Like, literally from the bike lane into the property. And that's how it should be approached. The building facade, for example, like I mentioned, should really, it should really be closer to the street. People don't go downtown because there's parking. It's because it feels like there's a place to go to. And this doesn't feel like a place to go to. It feels like a place to drive in and get out. And so that's my initial thought right now, because I would love to see something there. I just want to see it done right, and with prioritizing the visibility of people walking and cycling, because otherwise this is going to be a even more dangerous intersection.
Okay, we made that. No.
Okay, thanks for your comment, Emily.
Continuing through the drawings, this would be the upper levels. So you'd have residences on two sides of the central corridor. With the vertical circulation hub, the elevator hub in the elbow. And then if we continue on to the sheets, sure. So you have to shrink it down a bit. These are some black and white 2D elevations. This is the south. The lowest level is the.
This is the level where the underground parking is. That's a garage door right there. So that's the biggest exposure.
Keep going. So this would be the east face facing Gretchen's house.
You can see the opening. Yep.
The units all have outdoor patio space or balcony deck space. So everybody can get outside of their units.
This is the breezeway I talked about. This is actually kind of the corner of the building. This is where you can walk in between and go from one side to the other, most likely used for residents or residents more commonly from Northside Commons developments who walk up here for whatever commercial use, restaurant, retail is there.
Keep going.
Is there any wiggle room on how many stories? 4 stories just seems like it's gonna be a behemoth in this area. And we've got this park, everyone around here, you know, we're here because we like that we're close to the city, but we're out in nature. And we like to be able to have those sight lines into the trees and everything. If you look at, I'm looking at things, especially in Carytown, those new buildings that are popping up. And 4 stories makes a big impact. 3 is a lot, but 4 stories is like, oh my gosh, you know, it's towering over everything. There's nothing else that is in the area currently, nor could be placed in the area in the future that would kind of blend into such a monolith. You know what I mean? It's just too big. Is there any wiggle room to bring it down to 3 stories, which would still provide the commercial that is, I agree, completely needed in this little section, but it would lessen the amount of traffic, the needed parking spaces, and it will preserve a lot of what all the homeowners out here have purchased homes for.
I totally second that. There's no other 4-story in the area. And 4 stories, don't look at the sunset anymore, because you're not going to see it. It's too tall. 3 stories I'd be totally on board with. 4, there's no other 1st story in the area. And people didn't move out here to have a 4-story building. You'd stay in the city.
We'll make that note in the report.
So I'd also like to comment, just the way it's designed as one mass. If it was broken up more, that would help with that feeling that people are reacting to, that it's one big monolith. And I'd also like to ask, what are the materials in this elevation that we're seeing?
They're masonry, brick masonry, siding, Nichiha, some metals.
We'll get to the 3D stuff.
And I think, am I correct in that in the drawings that you were showing us from 1999, those were the mixed use, but it was 2 stories?
It was 2 buildings, but I'm not sure that there was any height associated with it.
I thought I read something, sorry, maybe I'm wrong. I thought I read.
You could be, it's been 22 years since I really looked at those drawings, so.
Can we get to the?
Yeah, we're gonna move on to the other, this is one of the other elevations, but we'd like to take you to, which one do you want to go to, the fly road?
No, the top.
Okay. So take you to some of the renderings here so you can get a little more perspective on how it looks in 3D on the site. It's a little warmer than like just the 2D flat faces.
So there are some trees on the site that will be maintained. Some of them have the landmark status that the city grants trees once they get to be a certain size. So those will be maintained, and then we'll supplement when we come to the landscape design, additional trees in working with the city's what is it, not parks,
Urban forestry.
urban forestry. In terms of the selection of the species, but there'll be a plan that outlines evergreens, certain percentage, deciduous trees, a certain percentage, flowering trees, a certain percentage. So that there will be a variety of foliage on the site. But this is at the far west end. This is the outdoor seating area at the west end.
Looking east from Pontiac Trail.
That is what I'm going to be waking up and looking at every day. And the
Looks
thought of
like
looking at that
hospital.
many cars and that much concrete is just wild.
Yes,
I like the bar. I'm for development, but that just seems like I'm all of a sudden looking at like city sort of buildings and not at all.
At the hospital, you're looking at a wing of
looking
the
at a
hospital.
hospital. That's awful. I'm sorry, I don't want to be being so terrible, but that's awful.
It just feels big. I think again, if it were down to the commercial and even just the 2 stories of living above it, it won't feel like it's towering. But when you had the view of it looking at the old farmhouse on the northwest corner of Pontiac and Varren, I like look at that poor baby out there. It just feels like it's Pac-Manning that sucker.
I think there's an opportunity. I mean, I would imagine. Well, I guess one question I have is in terms of design aesthetic, is this what you guys are going for, given like what, like I'm assuming given cost, this type of design, which is like these this large L-shaped kind of monolith?
Well, it's a bunch of things all coming together and overlapping. Cost is certainly one consideration. The other is circulation on the site, viability for the retail tenants in terms of the proximity of parking. There's a number of things that come into play.
Maybe it's just
Okay, well, because here's the thing. Well, sorry, Jamie, because I think that you guys, this project would be better served if there was some just basic precedent study on where larger retail residential mixed use space, like the character of the building just feels very downtown, and like everyone has been saying, it feels just like a soulless kind of monolith. And I think for everyone around that, like it feels, I would imagine, at least for Jamie, it would also feel like all these people are just looking in my house, you know?
Yeah, I'm right across the street, so it doesn't feel good. It is like you're saying, it's maybe part of it too. I think we're just taking it in, so bear with us, guys, because we're seeing this for the first time. But we're not modern. We're not modern. This area of town, it's never going to be modern, you know. So maybe it's even just the aesthetic of the real flat front, the kind of modern materials. I don't know if there's a way to align the design, the outward aesthetic of the elevation or whatever you call it, to reflect more of like a park-like setting, you know, acreage lots, that sort of thing. Maybe that would go over better.
Or at the very least, materiality, you know, like there are rustic kind of farm elements that could be incorporated into the design, so it wouldn't feel like such a, it looks like a hotel.
You know, I'm a firm believer that pictures can convey information a lot more effectively when we're talking aesthetics than text or words. So if you guys have some pictures of what you're trying to describe as an aesthetic, send it to us. You know, I don't-
Right, but that's also,
Good
but in
job.
my opinion, it's also part of like your job to be thoughtful about this and find references for this as well.
I mean, could we go to
I'll
U
go
of
on.
M architecture school possibly and go, we got this corner, we have to do something with it, give it a school project?
I mean, you could find an intern who take 2 hours to actually do precedent studies on this kind of thing. It's not that hard. It would be a cheap thing to get done.
I mean, when I think of these buildings, I'm thinking of buildings down on South Main, the 2 apartment buildings that are south of downtown. I think they're probably this tall. And then when I think of, who would use this sort of thing from, this is just so heavily automotively dominated. There's no shot at a pedestrian getting at this place.
Yeah, I think that's why if the buildings were on the street, it would feel more inviting, right? Like that's it. That's a neighborhood hang when you're walking up and you've got this sense of like the cute, quaint downtown Plymouth, downtown Dexter, where everything is, the street fronted parking in the back. I think it would be more inviting.
And I think of some examples of that, Argus over off of the west side, Argus Farm Stop. So that's a walkable neighborhood joint, is just one that comes to mind. There's this strip on Packard by Burns Park, sort of a neighborhood shopping area. This thing is really feeling, it's going to be the only commercial in the area. And I know that it's designed to maximize, so it works in terms of profitability and so forth, but I think it is out of scale. I would think, is the zoning, is the height of this thing within the current zoning, or would they have to change the zoning?
So there is no height limit in the current zoning.
Okay,
And we are proposing to change it to a mixed use class zoning, C3. And the C3 zone does have a height limit. And so that's why we're staying at the 4 stories, because that is the height limit of that district.
4 stories.
I
And how
can't
high
imagine
is
going higher.
it?
Why did you pick 4 stories as opposed to 3 stories? Or 2, why 4?
Well,
Because
we didn't pick it. That was a directive from ownership. And that was based on economic viability.
Right. We all get it.
I don't
Everything
believe
comes
that.
down to money. But I just think it's something that big is going to displace a lot of the value that this corner is known for, the peace and quiet, the serenity, the park like. We've got all these kind of semi-homesteaders up and down to Varren. And this is just a completely different vibe when you're bringing in like essentially a city piece. It's not even Carytown like we kind of ease our way into the city with Carytown first, but this is really, it does kind of have like a microtel sort of a feel to it. And it just
I think
doesn't.
Carytown is a pedestrian oriented downtown shopping area, but it doesn't feel big, even with the 4-story buildings going up around it. I think something like this, if it were really figured out, like you were saying earlier, with the flow and designed to attract pedestrian traffic in the spaces, readjusted for pedestrian and bike traffic, so people could make it a hangout, then I think, that's obviously not even factored into this design aesthetic, really. So I just think that needs to be a bigger part of the design. And if you do that, it'll dictate some things to do with the site.
I live down Manor Drive. I wholeheartedly agree with the comments that everybody has been saying. The traffic has already become to the point where I can't stand in my yard and talk to a neighbor without yelling because there's so much coming through. I worry that this is exactly as you said, Emily, just so car heavy, so aggressive for this part of the neighborhood, especially with the parks. And I also have a question too. How do we know which retail is actually going into this space, or do we at all? Is it just that we open it up and it's available to whoever bids highest? So we could have, Dollar General and Qdoba, or could it be a more community oriented retail space? And how do we know that?
Sorry, what was that about retail space?
How do we know who's going into the retail space? Is it, in other words, whoever bids the highest, or is it who would fit the community the best?
So far, we don't have any pre-leasing.
So theoretically, it could be like a 7-Eleven that slots into the space if they pay the most money.
I would have to ask the ownership if they would consider 7-Eleven as a desirable tenant. I did not ask them that question.
To address a comment that came earlier, the only thing I believe that's not allowed on this property is a gas station. It's been deed restricted from 22 years ago, so no gas station.
Karen, I wouldn't worry about the retail. Nobody's going to be able to cross the street in that area with that roundabout of Varren and Pontiac Trail anyway. So,
You can design, like, I think but that, I'm gonna disagree because the roundabout, it's not easy, but there's a lot that actually can be done from a pedestrian cycling scale. The street can be painted. You can actually have street murals. You can have dedicated protected bike lanes. There are ways to slow traffic where it makes the actual driver look for people. And it usually means that people have to be closer to the road. So if they see activity like bike lanes and sidewalks and cafes with chairs and tables, there's a visual cue that happens where they tend to slow down. And that's why so pedestrians do have, this could be a great anchor point where it could be a pedestrian centric area if they do it right and focus on the pedestrian safety.
That's a big if. And when all these projects, all these homes are built and are completed, say about 3-4 years, it's going to be 1,000 new homes in this corner. That's going to be super high density. City's going to get what they want, and then they're going to walk away. It's going to be our problem. You're right. It could be done right. I've never seen it done right.
It's been done right elsewhere, just maybe not in Ann Arbor.
To respond to a comment, I'd like to respond to a comment, and I hadn't really considered this. I've just been thinking about it as you guys have been talking. I know, because I've worked on several projects on Pontiac Trail in the last 10 years, that traffic comes into town going quite fast. And passing Varren Road, you're only going downhill. Literally, traffic doesn't slow down until they get to the bottom of that hill and start actually climbing the next hill as you go south. Now, slowing that traffic down with a roundabout, I think is going to preemptively slow down traffic as it enters this area.
I agree. We see that at Nixon and Varren Green.
Sure,
Slow down.
makes sense. It makes perfect sense there too, right?
Yeah, and that works really well for flow. I think we're all, like, who live right here at this intersection, we're all excited for any relief because it is lots of sirens, lots of screeching tires and honking horns, and a whole trailer flew up and upside down into that farmhouse's front yard. Thank God their kids weren't out front. I mean, stuff happens, and there's nothing that allows for safety crossing. But I noticed even in driving into that other roundabout we were just talking about, that it's hard, right? We have this sense of like, go get them, like it's my turn. And the cars are just looking for their window to hop in and get in with that traffic. It's an interesting thing. I don't know if I'm the only person, but I find it is less obvious to the drivers to be also looking for pedestrians and bikers. They're just worried about when can I go? So there's not as much focus and attention going to those. So to Emily's point, like, how can we make even the roundabout safer? I like the blinking lights. I like it when we have the push button to signal pedestrians crossing. It does the blinking orange lights. They did that up at the one just further south on Pontiac Trail. Glorious. Why we've not gotten one is a real head scratcher up here. But something to make that, and maybe you guys are saying that's not in your wheelhouse to affect, but.
Well, we can certainly, in discussions with the city traffic engineers, we can point out the comments that you all have made.
Yeah.
We can propose to put in one of those pedestrian crossings further away from that traffic circle where it would be functionally safe. And we can make that proposal and see what kind of feedback we get from the city traffic engineer.
I think the more pedestrian focused and the more the owner is willing to actually contribute a little bit to the inevitable traffic flow and risk that is going to happen with that type of development, you're gonna have more buy-in from the neighbors, because want it to be safe and we want it to be pedestrian focused. That's kind of all I hear from whenever I've had these conversations.
Yeah, and I've made that note.
Yep.
Another thought on the retail too. I mean, if you build it like a suburban shopping center, those are going to be the kind of tenants it attracts. If it has more character and more appeal to a neighborhood feel, you'll get, the Rappaport kind of corner bar, restaurant, family-owned places, and it'll be a real place. And I know that's a big part of what Ann Arbor is promoting in downtown is that you bump into people and down, it works as a place to meet people and to gather and to take care of your, shopping needs. So it just has to be organically figured out that way. Right now, it looks like, basically a 1960s suburban shopping center, but at a different scale than that. But it really is the same aesthetic.
On the point of what's going on downtown is the merchants are discovering that people want to be on Main Street and take advantage, like in Carytown, of some of the outdoor space. It would be nice to see that this development had outdoor patios, areas that are integrated into the plan that become part of the whole site there. And has been said, connection to the park.
And I get no homeowner, if they were designing their own home, that would put it on the street. You're going to want to get a little setback so that you're buffering noise and traffic and all of that. But if we look at what has been really successful around, everything is coming up real street fronted because we're looking to engage the pedestrians and engage the communities. And when everything is fronted by traffic, it's even hard as the 2,000 people, I think one of you guys said, might be walkers, walkable distance into this area. It would be weird having to walk through all the parking lot. And with that much business, plus 200 or whatever units of residents, you have that many cars coming and going. That could be kind of dangerous to walk littles, especially from the park through all the parking lot just to get to the ice cream shop or whatever it is. But if it's right there on the street, it makes a lot of sense and it looks really cute and quaint. I'm telling you, cute and quaint, those sell. When you have a cute, quaint environment, you're going to get business no matter the quality of what's inside because people are window shopper, looky-loos, they get drawn in by something that looks that way. But having all that parking lot fronting everything and looking like a big maze to walk through just doesn't invite a lot of that. But I think about up and down Main Street, we have $1 million condos that are right on the sidewalk, and it doesn't deter, trust me, I'm a realtor, it does not deter people from buying those places at all.
I have two questions. One question is, and maybe this was already answered earlier, is the owner an actual person or is it a development group? That's my first question.
The development group is made of actual people. So yes, it is a development company, but there are human beings, in charge of giving us direction.
Okay.
They from Ann Arbor?
I'm sorry?
Do they reside in Ann Arbor?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, that's the problem right there. It's all about money, period.
Right. Well, okay. So additionally, I know you guys have worked in urban environments, but do you have an actual urban designer on the team? Like I know Brad has said that you guys work together on a weekly basis, but the actual design everything is so separated. There's no real integration. It's just building, parking lot, road. There's so much more opportunity for this site. So I'm curious if you actually have an urban designer with experience on the team.
So we have certainly the planners and landscape architects that are part of Midwestern Consulting. They're a multidisciplinary company, but we don't have a separate person outside of Midwestern Consulting's multidisciplinary person.
I'm not familiar really with someone who is an urban designer. There are people who have a resume of urban projects, and certainly Midwestern Consulting. We're based in Ann Arbor. We've been here since 1967. we've done many of the developments that you guys drive by and shop at every day. And urban trends have changed, to be honest with you. I mean, I've been in this business for 35 years and trends today are not what they were in 1988 when I started in this business. So, I mean, define what is urban. Urban is whatever is popular right now. You know?
Which is why I see in the 1999, they have the parking lot on the corner, but that's not the way we do things today. We do want it flip-flopped. We do want quaint. We want buildings. We want walkable. So I think that would bring it much more current. And I wonder too, with all of that asphalt, where's all that water running off to?
Well, it's going into underground detention. And actually this site was designed with the entirety of Northside Commons back at that time. It was already designed to accept the runoff from this site. However, since then, the design standards for capturing stormwater runoff have changed and they've gotten more stringent. And so that will be augmented with underground detention cells in the parking lot that infiltrate into the groundwater. So, and Jamie, I think, I know you've talked about fronting the roads with the buildings and everything. I think you would probably be in the end the most disappointed with that, because I think you would end up getting a lot of bounce back of noise right to your house.
You can do things with trees and plantings and setbacks that will actually buffer the noise. I really don't like this idea that, I can tell you're pushing a certain, I know you're the client's representative here, so, but it's not like this hasn't been done before. And it's not like sound can't be buffered if it's designed well. And so I take issue with saying that that Jamie would prefer a parking lot.
Well, the reason I say that is because I have a vast amount of experience in sound walls on expressways. And when you put up one on one side, all the sound bounces back to the other side. So that is in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, and maybe again, you guys could go do some precedent studies with actual using vegetation and design to buffer the sound. It's not it's not like you do a street facing building and all of a sudden it's just going to be like a cacophony of sound, you know. And I think that goes back to like the whole conversation around like there has to be greater intention around how this thing is designed, and because it's
sound and light, Emily, sound and light, especially across the street with that park there.
I think we've noted that sound and light were pretty major concerns. We're getting close to the end of our time. Does anybody have anything that they've been waiting to bring up? Any last comments?
Last comment would be there needs to be a better job of reaching out to the neighbors. A number of us didn't actually get the postcards.
So let me ask something. Let me interrupt. Andy, you live on Varren, I assume?
Yeah, the card says within 1,000 feet, so
Okay.
I don't, maybe.
But I got one and I live on the other side of Emily. So I don't know, there were some holes.
I guess I don't know.
Yeah, for those,
And I did speak with somebody at the city planning office and they said, oh yeah, we didn't get the township addresses in the mix. I didn't know if that was because of you or because of them, but I'm curious to say what, I don't know why Emily and I didn't get one, other people didn't on the street, but some did. That's just going to be our mystery.
Andy, how many doors off of Pontiac Trail do you live?
I mean, we're right on Pontiac Trail, we're set back.
Okay, all right. So you're as close as it gets, basically, huh?
Pretty much, yeah.
There's
Okay.
one house between us and Gretchen's house.
Okay.
I'm that one house. I'm right next door to Gretchen's house.
yeah,
And
for
we
those,
got a postcard too.
for those who may not have been here when I indicated the process, it's the city that develops the addresses. They supply them to our
Yeah.
mailing service. So we don't develop it.
So you probably are entitled to get the list of who was notified if you contact the city. I don't.
We
know.
have the list of everyone who would have been notified. It comes in an Excel file that we give to the printers who melds that with the postcards. So, but the list is not generated by us. We request the list from the city of Ann Arbor.
Right. I'd just like to say I'm excited to have something there, and I know that the process will probably work reasonably well. I have a little more confidence than Tom does, but I just wanted to really, and people definitely said this, really have a pedestrian element to it that really ties it to more of a neighborhood feel.
Well, as we said, this is the very beginning of it. There'll be ample times for other public hearing and public engagement and public comment. So don't feel like this is your only opportunity to speak up. You can watch as this evolves and continue to comment along the way.
And so Scott, taking the feedback you got today on the next meeting, should we expect to see little tweaks in the plan? What would the next meeting look like?
So that'll be up to, I mean, we'll convey all of this to our clients. That will be up to them to tell us which comments they feel that they can fold in and which ones they cannot.
And let's say they just are like, screw the residents, we want more money. So we're going to add in the extra 75 units on the 4th floor. They get to do that. And like I guess I'm curious, how much weight do our voices have?
I can't give you a quantitative answer to that.
Yeah, that's a booger.
I think the answer to that is to go to the city council meetings and the planning commission meetings. I mean, these folks can't get past them. Your voice has a weight in your city or your township. So.
Well, it's true. And it still is not, they have not rezoned it yet. So I guess that application has not been approved yet.
No, there hasn't even been a formal application made for anything.
Yeah,
yet.
so in terms of the process, Jamie, there are two separate applications. One is the zoning application, the other is the site plan application, because the city will not process a zoning request without a site plan. So they go in and they parallel process in tandem side by side through both the staff review, through the planning commission review and city council review. So even though it's two different requests, they're piggyback.
Okay. And does the city planning office hear, or did they get some synopsis summary about what was relayed to you guys in this meeting?
Yes,
Yeah.
we produce a synopsis and we provide that to the city staff along with that application for zoning and the application for site plan.
Brad has been diligently writing down comments on his pad of yellow dog there, if you've been noticing.
Yes. Okay. That's good. I would just, since it is kind of an in tandem thing, I just appreciate the fact that our concerns are getting relayed to the city so that they can also determine what would be the best use.
And just so you know, there are formalized opportunities for community engagement, such as the citizens participation meeting and the public hearings at planning commission, the public hearings at city council. It doesn't mean you can't also write emails or send letters to the city planning staff outside of those formalized engagement opportunities. Anybody can write a letter or send an email to the planning staff about any project in town anytime.
That is a good reminder. I appreciate that.
Would you be able to just say who the owners, where do they come from? Or would you rather not say that?
Well, the owners of the property are actually city of Ann Arbor residents, but they are selling the property. It's been offered for sale, and there's been several people that have been looking at it who are not city of Ann Arbor residents.
Yeah, so we're in our capacity, we're working for the buyer, proposed buyer, not the seller. And it's an LLC, and I can't tell you that I know all of the members of the LLC.
So
You can find
once
it
again,
in the city, right?
we really want to thank you guys. I think you guys have given us some good input. We'll take note of your comments. And once again, this is not your last opportunity to speak. if this proceeds, the next action item would be that a site plan would be filed with the city of Ann Arbor. At that point, you're welcome to view that by accessing the city's website online. We'll take these questions to our client and see if it's feasible to incorporate some of the suggestions we heard this evening. Other than that, though, thank you very much. You guys have been a very, very delightful crowd, and we've enjoyed this conversation with you tonight.
Thank you for answering all the questions. I appreciate it.
And if you're like me, my wife will tell you I'm a victim of delayed intelligence. I'll think of 6 questions after the meeting is over. That's why you have our email.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Have a good night.